Hi. So I'm trying a technique to see if doing a video this way helps to keep it alive longer. So instead of my talking head, I'm going to show you some of the flowers in my garden while I talk to you about the situation at hand. So I know a lot of you are really freaking out, and that's valid because you are being forced into a situation where you have to decide between your physical autonomy and a paycheck. And many of you have seen what the potential downside is of that choice. There's the financial downside and the health insurance downside and all the things related to your employment downside, but you have also seen the physical autonomy downside. So, there are countless people who will say that, oh, I did it and I'm just fine and I had a sore arm for a few days. But as you know, there are also countless people who have not fared so well, and they are having resurgence of latent infections, particularly herpes infections. So we're seeing herpes simplex, herpes zoster flares, shingles outbreaks. We're seeing Lyme that was in remission resurface, Epstein-Barr virus. We're seeing all of these things, and we're also seeing these latent neurological symptoms start to show weeks to months later. There's all the thrombotic events, the blood clotting and the bleeding episodes that are happening, right? That list could go on, and you're aware of it, which is why you've decided to sustain your own physical autonomy. And so now you're being put in a difficult situation. What I want you to realize is you have more power than you think. I'm not saying absolutely for sure that this is going to work out in your favor, but I think you should ride it out, because you may get to the deadline, which, the further out the deadline is, the more chance you have of more crap coming to the surface to really reveal what's going on with this situation, right? Every day that passes, more information comes out about how quote unquote leaky these things are, and that more and more people who receive them are getting sick anyway. So what's the point? I would plan on riding it out right to the deadline, but you need to have a contingency plan. Okay. So that's one piece of it. And maybe I'll circle back to that, but I want you to realize that your employer, you're an asset to your employer, and your job as an asset is to earn revenue and profits for your employer. And any business owner, whether it's a small business with a handful of employees or it's a massive corporation, can tell you that 5, 10, 15, 20%, 50% of the workforce, if 50% or even 10 or 5% of the workforce all disappeared on a certain deadline, that would have significant, if not catastrophic, impact on the financial well-being of that institution. So what may happen when they realize, if these people stick together and say, I'm not hesitant, I'm just not doing it. If these people stick together, what may happen is you get to the deadline and the deadline gets extended, because they realize that they're going to lose revenue, and they're going to lose the revenue that you generate. And then what they're going to have to do is pay other people to do your job too, which is going to create overtime, which is expensive and results in employee burnout. And so there's all sorts of financial things to take into consideration. So, you need to do a few things. You need to do a little homework between now and your deadline. So the first is you got to find out if you are terminated because you refuse to participate in this, what is currently experimental medical procedure, whether it is by the time, no matter what, it is going to be experimental, but they might name it something else by then. If you're fired for that reason, are you ineligible for unemployment or not? So that's one thing to find out. The other thing to find out is what is your financial situation? Can you go a period of time without revenue to be able to, and maybe retrain or, look for a job in another field. What kind of expenses can you eliminate? Like, you might have to do some of the hard things. The easy thing would be to just put that thing in your body until something really bad happens and you lose your job anyway because you can't work. And that's a possibility. I mean, it's a legit possibility, and we don't know because there's not a single person that works at where you work who has had this thing for more than a few months. So we are only aware now of short-term injury, short-term potential, short-term problems with these things. What we have no idea is what's going to happen. There's a couple hummingbirds up in the tree up there. I don't know, you can't see them. What's going to happen when the winter months come, right? What's going to happen in a year? Are we going to start seeing these long-term effects start to come to the surface? We absolutely do not know. And so I think you are wise to not want to participate in this thing. So what I want you to know is you're not alone. I know, like, especially within the healthcare industry, there's high compliance rates. Other industries, not as much, but many employers aren't even talking about mandating this thing because they know they can't afford to lose even 5% of their workforce. And some of the people in leadership don't want it either. So you're not as alone as you think you are. So I just want you to know that you're not alone, and people, like, we feel for you, like, we understand, and it's scary, and you can be brave, and just know that you have power, and that the financial impact when we stick together is so much stronger than if we fold one by one by one. Because what will happen if people don't just comply and they accept the termination, that's when your human resources people and your management teams are going to be like, we can't function without these management people. We can't function without these teams. We can't function without these support people. And they're going to have to change their game, but that's not going to happen if people one by one roll up their sleeve and comply. The only thing that's going to keep you and your colleagues who are in the same boat safe is if you band together. So some resources. So these are just off the top of my head. So the Children's Health Defense Fund would be worth going to their website and looking to see if they have any kind of litigation pending for especially healthcare workers, but anyone who's being forced to do this. America's Frontline Doctors has already filed lawsuits, and I imagine they are working on additional lawsuits. It might be worth pinging them. I can only imagine the civil liberties people might have something to say about this. You should speak with an employment attorney and a constitutional law attorney. I do expect this will eventually go to the Supreme Court, so don't know how that will play out. But ride it out, because I've heard so many people who said, oh yeah, I got it in case I need it for travel. Well, you don't need it for travel. And by the time you potentially might need it for travel, it might be a whole different thing. You might need another thing. So don't go jumping the gun. New data comes out every day saying how like that makes this thing look worse and worse and worse and worse. And so by the time that deadline comes, we may know more, so that the things have changed, and who knows what could happen. It might be pulled off the market by then. So hang in there. I feel for you. You are not alone. Just don't sit there waiting for it to happen. Be proactive and band together. All right? Peace out.